Good day. Thank you for joining us. And welcome to the Chai Academy being broadcast from the Chai Center. I'm Rabbi Sachs, and we meet again. So we're in the middle of this course called Jewish Beliefs and Ethics, and we're going slowly through some of the fundamentals. I believe our priorities, etc. Each class is self-contained, so I would not. If you're tuning in for the first time, it's fine. You'll enjoy this, and you can always catch up at the academy at a later time. So today's class is on gossip and slander. And you may have heard of the Hebrew word lashon hara. So, truth be told, this it's a biblical command. Do not be a talebearer amongst your people, and it's probably one of the top 3 most difficult mitzvahs to keep. It is so difficult. Everybody steps into it once in a while. It's just difficult. You know what they say? There's actually another commandment that's extremely difficult, and you will mess up, and that is honoring one's parents. You know, honoring one's parents is first of all, it's a lifetime. Secondly, is God knows, you say something to your parents they find dishonorable, even if you don't. It's a mess up, for sure. If you told them to shut up, etc. But lashon hara is very difficult because it's in a person's lifetime, as we'll discuss, we could be guilty of this biblical command of slander and gossip. If it's needed, then it's not lashon hara, and we'll flesh it out a little bit more. If it's not needed, it is lashon hara. So we really have to tread carefully here. Now, in the Talmud, by the way, it compares lashon hara. It's akin to murder, because you basically, if you gossip about somebody and you ruin their reputation, the Talmud says you may as well have murdered them. So it's a biggie. There's a whole book dedicated by the Chafetz Chaim. He dedicated a book on lashon hara. That was his. Passed away in 1930 something, and he has many people following him. And the Chafetz Chaim Foundation has stickers that you put on the phone, on your or by your keyboard to say, hey, watch it, be careful, think twice before you speak. There's a story. It's a fable, I think, of a fellow that was telling lashon hara, slander and gossip against his rabbi, and this went on for quite a while. And then finally, he goes over to the rabbi and says, "I beg your forgiveness." The rabbi says, "I forgive you." He says, "But I need you to do something for me in order for me to properly forgive you." He goes, "Yes, sure. What?" So he said, "I want you to take this pillow and stand at the top of the synagogue building on the roof, tear the pillow, and let the feathers fall down to the floor." So he does it, and he says, "Rabbi, mission accomplished. The feathers, I tore the pillow, and the feathers are down on the floor." So the rabbi said, "Okay, now put the feathers, collect all the feathers, and put them back in the bag." To which the man said, "That's impossible. I cannot do that." And the rabbi said, "That's lashon hara, because once it's out, right? Once you've maligned somebody, how are you going to take it back? Of course, you can always apologize to the individual, but how do you take it back? How does one undo the damage that one has done? Because you tell somebody, you gossip about somebody, that person gossips to someone else who you don't know, and there's the 6 degrees of separation before you know it. There's 7,000 people who heard this juicy gossip, and you may apologize, but how do you? Anyway, so that's why it's tricky. It's interesting in Jewish thought, in Jewish philosophy. It's brought down that somebody, a talebearer, a gossiper, a slanderer, actually doesn't only affect himself, it affects 3 people. The talebearer should not be doing what he's doing. Should not. The person who is telling it to is culpable, because he should say, I don't want to hear, and walk away. But the fact that he hears and he listens, it makes him culpable. And the person they're speaking about is also culpable. This is it's counterintuitive, but this is what it says, that the person you're speaking about, if it's true, then oy vey. And if it's not true, what could you have done different so people would not make up these things? Where there's no smoke, there's fire, so you did something. It's not what they said, but you caused these people to speak about you. And therefore, you're caught within this vortex, in the spider's web of Lashon Hara. You're there. So the talebearer, the speaker, the listener, and the person they're speaking about. I once heard somebody speak, and he said it's not original thought, but he says, if you notice, the fingers fit into the ear canal perfectly. It's not too big, it's not too small. And the reason is it's to symbolically show that you can just block everything out. You don't have to listen to somebody's gossip. It's difficult. It's difficult, because gossip is very, very, it has a certain allure, and and if you think about it, look how many talk show hosts and Joan Rivers, right, made her livelihood millions of dollars just gossiping, and the newspapers sell because of gossiping, etc., etc. So it's a difficult thing. Now, not all Lashon Hara are equal. So there are actually 3 tiers, and hopefully this will clear up a lot. There are 3 tiers of Lashon Hara. Okay, 3 tiers that, and by the way, when I say Lashon Hara, the generic term for slander and gossip, it may not even mean proper slander. But it comes under that banner, and it's biblically prohibited. I take this opportunity before we start. If anybody has any question or any insight or something to add, feel free to ask, to write in the comment section. Realize that a person who will see this after it's not live can gain from your comments as well. So it's also, I'm not sure who's here, but it'd be nice to know who's viewing. So there's 3 tiers. So one tier would be something that we would call trivial. You're talking nonsense, right? It's non-defamatory. You're not defaming anybody. You're just talking about somebody, and it's very benign. It's nothing it's nothing negative, for sure. Nothing negative. That is considered avak lashon hara. It's considered it has a certain scent of lashon hara, and the reason is because if you talk about a person, it's inevitable that somebody's going to say, yeah, but you know what I heard about the individual. And therefore, says the Talmud, it doesn't even pay to talk good about somebody. Through talking about their good, you're going to open up a Pandora's box, and you're going to talk, someone's going to talk badly about the person. Right? Once again, nobody, when you talk good about a person, the conversation dies because it's not juicy gossip. But when you talk about a person, it will lead into negativity. So therefore, you're advised, limit, as far as talking about anybody, just limit the conversation. Say what you have to, but don't embellish and don't continue and say, you know what else is interesting about the guy? It's not necessary. Because another person will say, oh yeah, that's the quality he has. Well, let me tell you, I hear that he or she, etc. And then you're in hot water. So the Talmud advises you, just don't speak about somebody. Right? You just say the bare minimum when it's talking about someone else. The bare minimum. Right? So that's the first one, which is, and you could think to yourself, I did nothing wrong, I said nothing wrong. However, you were the catalyst for the next person to step up, and all of a sudden we have a conversation that ensues that is not, it's not good, it's not perfect, it's harmful and hurtful, and can defame somebody. So even non-defamatory things, shut up. If it's not necessary, and that is the key operative word here. If it's not necessary, don't say it. And if something is necessary, you don't have to give another example. Just get your point across and move on. So that would be the first category. The second one is Lashon Hara itself. Right? And so it's interesting, Lashon Hara, evil tongue, bad tongue, which basically, we have that term in English, bad mouthing, right? It's the same word. So Lashon Hara, it's Hebrew, both Hebrew words, and Lashon Hara is ha-rabah, right? So the second one is actually where you're talking about negative traits about somebody. You're actually talking negative. And I hear this a lot. And so I think this is probably the most important the important part of this particular class. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. It's bad mouthing somebody. So I hear, and the comment is said colloquially, right? What is the comment? The comment is, I'm not saying anything that's not true. I'm giving you the emes. I'm giving you the truth. This is what happened. If I don't need to know, I don't need to know. If it's not necessary for me to know, this person to know, that person to know, they should not know about it. And even if it is the truth, they still don't need to know about it. Therefore, if somebody does need to know about it, even though it's negative, you are allowed to say it. So you're listed as a job reference. Somebody calls you. You can't pull the wool over their eyes. You have to say, okay, this is excellent employee, a little quiet, and gets overwhelmed quickly. It's not Lashon Hara. It's not. If you tell somebody who's not your buddy to say, oh, so-and-so works for me, but he's so quiet, gets overwhelmed, that's Lashon Hara. It's exactly the same thing. One was necessary, one was not. The same is true. A job, a match, somebody calls you about a certain guy, a certain girl. Talk. There's an expression in Yiddish that goes something like this. A liegen tome nicht sagen. You're not allowed to lie. Aber the ganze emes darf man nicht sagen. But the entire truth you don't have to say. So don't embellish, right? You say. I remember once I had somebody that worked for me who was quick, short fuse. And somebody called me about her. And I, quite frankly, didn't. It was a marriage call. I quite frankly didn't know what to say. I said, let me call you back. I can't take your call. So I asked the person, I said, how do I get over this hump? Right? Do I say she's highly flammable? How do I get over this hump? To what she said, my mother has the perfect response. My mother says, say that she is passionate. She's very passionate about many things. So passion is another word for, right? She gets she gets passionate about something very quickly. So that's a term I used. So you don't have to say the whole truth, but you're not allowed to lie. Now, Steve Levy brings up an important point here, that as far as domestic harmony, right? You're not allowed to lie. Lying is forbidden. But once again, the ganze emes darf man nicht sagen. You don't have to say the whole truth, right? Right. So you have to be very careful. Remember, men are from Mars, women are from Venus, and if you say everything that's on your mind, you're going to get into a fight, and it's going to be a bad one. And so therefore you have to find ways. You're not allowed to lie, but you have to find ways to couch it, to say it, man to woman, woman to man, right? So and I'm not talking about did you cheat, did you have an affair. I'm not talking about anything like that. I mean, that's I can't even go there. I can't wrap my mind around that. But just something where it's an unnecessary argument. So either don't bring it up. If you bring it up, you couch it in different wording. And now, so that's a second category, right, of lashon hara, right? So reference, resume, job, etc. That you're allowed to say, right? And even then, once again, you have to tread carefully. You don't need to say anything extra, right? Yeah, she comes to work late very often. In fact, this week, I don't think she came in one day early. What for? What for? You got your point across. What for? Very difficult. This is difficult. Now, I'll tell you a fascinating story that I read, is that about the Chofetz Chaim, the author of not talking about lashon hara, wrote a book. Chofetz Chaim, it's called. Chofetz, new word, Chaim. So there's a story told, true or not, but it makes an excellent point. There's a story told about a fellow who was he was advised to go see the Chofetz Chaim because he was a holy Jew, right? Holy Jew. So he went to the Chofetz Chaim, to where the Chofetz Chaim lived, and he stopped somebody in the street and says, "Excuse me, I'm looking for the Chofetz Chaim. I'm looking for the great and holy man, the Chofetz Chaim." So this elderly Jew said, "Great, holy, yeah." So yeah, but I know him. Yeah, I don't know how great and holy he is, but he lives down the road. So he goes, "What did you just say?" So he said, "About the Chofetz Chaim." He says, "Well, everybody thinks he's a tzaddik, he's righteous. And I don't know how righteous he is." So with that, the man gives him a smack across his face. He goes, "How dare you speak about the leader of our generation? How dare you speak about somebody who's has a relationship with God and has fought evil inclination and is a world Jewish leader that saved many lives, etc., etc." And he was so disgusted with him, and he walked out. And he went into the Chofetz Chaim's office and waited and waited and waited. Finally, it was his turn. When he came into the office, his jaw dropped, because the person he smacked was the Chofetz Chaim. So he turned to the Chafetz Chaim and he said, "Oh my goodness, oh my goodness, I beg your forgiveness. I cannot believe I did this. And he was sick, as he should be. You don't hit anybody, right? And he was sick. To which the Chafetz Chaim replied to him. He goes, I learned something today. You know what I learned today? I learned that one must not say Lashon Hara even about themselves. What a concept, right? So self-deprecating is not really okay. You know, I say I'm short a lot, right? I say I have no neck, a small neck. I'm not talking about that type of self-deprecation. I'm talking about, I'm not. You're a smart guy. I'm not really smart, I'm actually, my IQ is probably less than most. Self-deprecating. Well, you're not allowed to do that. And that's a story. I'm not sure if it's true, but it's a great message. One cannot say, talk negative about themselves. So that's the second one. The second one is Lashon Hara, talking about negative, even true negative, you're not allowed to say. Now, the next level is the worst of the worst. The next level is, it's also under the Lashon Hara banner, but it's called Motzi Shemra. You say a malicious untruth. This is where when we talk about murder, this is really where murder comes into play. You say a malicious untruth about somebody, right? And by the way, you can say to yourself, "Well, I've never done it. I've never done that. I've never say a malicious untruth about somebody." So, if you spread a rumor you've heard, you were not the originator. But someone told you something, and you said it. And by the way, this happens every day in politics. Every day you say, "Oh, did you hear what Biden said? Did you hear what Trump said? Did you hear what this one said? Did you hear what that one said?" Right? Most of it is not true. Most of it was taken out of context, and therefore, until you can't say. And so most of us are guilty of this, because we just repeat what we heard. We took it as truth, as news, as I think the Christians took it as gospel. We don't, in Judaism, we don't have that expression. But we run with it. And you tell one person, my goodness, you are guilty of Motzi Shemra. You are guilty. And I know, by the way, a few months ago, somebody told me of a story that happened to them, and how they were mistreated by a politician, and it was complete anti-Semitism. And I went on a letter writing campaign, and I wrote to the politician. I wrote. I'm not talking about Ramos, where he. I'm not talking about that politician in Suffolk County, where he really did the wrong thing. Where we have to be aware where he stands. Public figure can really hurt us. But I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about... I wrote to the politician. I wrote to the politician's boss. I wrote to the politician where the venue took place to say this is... And it turns out, I wrote the letters. I wrote, I'm all fired up. I'm doing the right thing. Right? Turns out, I got hold of the video. And my goodness, was it taken out of context. What a lesson for me that was. So, I had to write another letter of apology, but it was wrong. I mean, I won't do that for a while. It's now, today's day and age is much more difficult than the Chafetz Chaim's day and age. In the Chafetz Chaim's day and age, so you told somebody, a letter, you could write a letter, or you could send a telegram, which is extremely expensive, right? or you can whisper to somebody in shul and synagogue. Nowadays, we have a telephone where we can contact anybody in the world if they have a phone on the other end. So probably not in the deep in the African desert, but you can contact so many people. You have a cell phone. A cell phone is you can text, instant message, WhatsApp, right? DM. It's unbelievable. The positive. I use it. I use all this social media, for good. But it can be so bad. Chofetz Chaim didn't have to deal with that. Where in seconds it's international. I always say that part of the reason why we have so many mental health issues with our youth is because of the cell phone. This kid knows too much. I'm not only talking about sex and porn, and I'm talking about anything and everything. Right? They're in contact potentially with 7.5 billion people. It's too much. It's too much. And then go online, search anything and everything. Things that they should know, things that they should not know, to all the things they should never know. Right? I know there's a site that I've tried to shut down for years, and I've lost. It's a pro-anorexia site. It's a pro-ana site, which basically says, "Come on, girl, you can do this. You can get away with 200 calories today. Don't let them convince you." It's insane. It's death. It will lead to death, and yet I can't shut it down. I can't shut it down. It's a pro-ana site. I'm not so involved anymore, but I used to bomb it every day. But it's terrible. I can't tell you. I'm on my journey. I met people, kids, who have died from eating disorders, and then you have this. You have the web. It's the lashon hara potential, the Motzi Shem Ra potential. Right, because of this, I've opted not to go to the news websites, the mainstream media. I will not go on. I don't care what side, who they represent, or what they. It's not journalism. It's a rumor, an innuendo, and I won't do it, because then I will repeat like a parrot what I heard, and it's wrong. So I'd listen pretty much top of the hour on the radio, right? CBS, 1010 wins. I listen to the news. I get it, so I'm not completely ignorant. The news on the radio, not the talk show hosts. The news on the radio is pretty much benign, because they just say it as it is, which is what it should be. And then I'm not interested. It also shortens your life. So therefore, in this day and age, we have particularly have to be very careful with rumors and Motzi Shem Ra, because that is it's just horrific. It's terrible. Walter Cronkite was a news person. That's what they say. Yeah, he was not an opinion maker. He didn't take a side. He reported the news, not the commentary. You got to report in the news like the weather. This is what's happening. This is what the maps look like, and finish. And you don't. Anyway, we really have to be extremely careful. Now, once again, it is one of the most difficult mitzvahs, negative mitzvahs. Don't be a talebearer, right? Don't do to repent, to clear up, because once the cat is out of the bag, the cat is out of the bag. So we have to be really, really, really careful. For me, as a rabbi, and I'm advising you to do the same, is, for me, I have something called privilege, rabbinical privilege, and I'm not allowed to. There are things that I know I'm not allowed to talk. If I do talk, I could be sued, and rightly so. So sometimes it's extremely difficult, but I got to be a trap, steel trap. My suggestion, and it was very difficult, and especially in the beginning, it was very difficult because this is a juicy bit of wow, right? But it's like a therapist is not allowed to talk, right? Everything is confidential. My wife's a therapist; she can't tell me anything. I'm a rabbi; I can't tell her anything, right? And it's people we know, we both know, but we just do not talk these things at home. Won't talk about it to other people. My suggestion is work on oneself to try and adopt the same attitude. And it slips out. Of course it slips out. But you really, and the best way to do it is to think twice, speak once. So God gave us 2 eyes to see. Right? He gave us two ears, 2 nostrils, but 1 mouth. Speak half of what you see and hear. Comment half about what you smell. There's no reason. You've got 1 mouth. Right? The idea is one should view themselves as if they have a definite amount of words, and a definitive amount of words, and not a I mean, I know stories of people that have died, and their kids don't know. The kids don't know they died. I'm not allowed to say anything. Right? Think about that. Estranged and wills and fight. I can't say anything. Can you imagine? But it's what you got to do. It's what you got to do. So, good luck on the hardest mitzvah. And the other hardest mitzvah, once again, is honoring one's parents. So there was, I think his name was Abaya. He was a sage in the Talmud. He says, the silver lining to me being an orphan, is that I could not violate that mitzvah. I just couldn't. I was an orphan. It gives you perspective. To see more of, please feel free to share this personal request to others on your Facebook page, perhaps. If you wish to see other classes, courses, go to thechaicenter.com/academy. And you can also go to thechaicenter.com/rabbi's blog for my thoughts that I pen on paper. And please share this so others can learn and we can get some traction. My job is to teach. I got to broaden my horizon. And it's not due to monetizing. I don't monetize this. Can't monetize this. I didn't even know how. It's just to teach. All right. God bless.